Hi everyone, welcome to Jigyasa by the Nudge Institute. We'll start soon, just waiting till everyone joins in and then we'll get started. Right. We'll get started. Hi everyone, welcome to Jigyasa, which is being organized by the Nudge Institute. I'm Shruti Subramanian. I work with the People and Culture team here, and it's really nice to be connecting with all of you this way. So Jigyasa is something that we do try and do at least once a month at the Nudge. It's an attempt by us to answer any questions that folks have about how the social impact space works like, introduce you to a few people working at the Nudge as well, and give you a better perspective into how the Nudge operates and how the sector generally operates. So we've done three Jigyasa so far, hoping you've had a chance to attend at least one of them, and this is the fourth one we'll do now. Don't worry, we'll keep doing more of these events in the future as well, so do stay tuned to the space for more. So let's get started. And yeah, before we go to the panel and talk about the topic that we're here for, just a brief intro or a bio about what the nudge does. So the basic ethos that we operate with is that every Indian deserves a dignified life out of poverty. And we believe that within our lifetime, we can achieve it collectively. So this is the basic principle that we operate with, and this is what the nudge was founded for as well. So just a basic overview of the Nudge Institute. We are, an action institute that works towards a poverty-free India within our lifetime. And we do that by partnering with governments, markets, and civil societies to build resilient livelihoods for all. So these livelihood interventions can be through multiple ways, which we'll throw a little light on coming forward. But basic principle is we want to ensure that everyone that we work with has the opportunity to build livelihoods that they can take forward and use to bring themselves out of poverty. And this is our mission to try and solve this challenging problem of poverty that we have in the country. So just some basic facts about the nudge, the kind of work that we do. So we started in 2015 with just one program, which is Gurukul. It was a skill development program that we started out in Bangalore. Currently, we have 2 centers and 8 programs that we work with. So under the Center for Rural Development, it's a very rural focus. We have the End Ultra Poverty, the Asha Kiran program, and the Refarm program. Under the Center for Social Innovation, we have around 5-6 programs: the Indian Administrative Fellowship, Forum, Social Entrepreneurship, the Nudge Prize, and the Agri Accelerator. To know more, do go to our website and take a look at what these programs do in detail. We'll not touch upon that due to lack of time. We also have other functions that work to enable and ensure that all the things running smoothly, which is your functions like people and culture, marketing, finance, impact, fundraising and partnership, and government alliances. So all of these are mostly based out of our office in Bangalore. Currently, we have about 4,000 plus employees across 9 states in India, and 2 more states we're going to start programs soon that we'll be updating you. And like I said previously, we work on a model of working with governments, markets, and civil societies in order to enable change and bring about any progress that we have. So let's go on to meeting our panelists for the event. Yeah, so our first panelist that we have is Kanishka, or Casey as we like to call him. His intro is already there. I'll just give a small brief about it. He spent about 17 years as a marketing consulting and commercial analytics leader in Clarivate and Genpact, worked mostly in the pharma, CPG, and BFSI domains. So he made a switch to the Nudge, to this space about 2 years ago. He's the director for the Nudge Prize program, which is currently India's only grand challenge program focused to bring disruptive solutions to sections of people who may not have access to it, and enable that markets reach these people as well. So Casey, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this. Any thoughts before we start the session?
No, thank you so much, Shruti. Happy to be here and happy to be speaking to everyone who's been able to join. Looking forward to a conversation that we will enable, but we will always be taking comments and conversation questions from you. So look forward to an hour of chatting.
Thanks so much, Casey. Thank you. We look forward to getting to know you better and understanding your experience as well. So our next panelist that we have is Geetanjali. So Geetanjali is someone whose journey to the sector is through an entrepreneurial route. So she's founded two startups. One is Farmism, which is a farm to fork marketplace for organic produce, and Green My Life, which is focused on creating sustainable landscapes. And she's also won the Goldman Sachs and Fortune Global Women Leader Award in 2018 for her efforts. And at the Nudge, Geetanjali works on something that's very near and dear to her heart. She heads a direct agricultural program called REFA, where the work is on creating, climate resilient agricultural practices, which can help increase the yields for small and marginal farmers. This is a very new program that we've recently started. So yeah, obviously, there's a lot of time that will take to work it, but we're very excited about it. Geetanjali, thank you so much. How are you feeling? What is it that you're looking forward from this session today?
Thank you so much, Shruti, and welcome to everyone. Welcome everyone to Jigyasa. Really happy to be doing this alongside Casey today, and looking forward to, like Casey said, an hour of great discussion, great points, putting across our experiences and some thoughts of what we've experienced in the non-profit sector.
Thank you so much, Geetanjali. So yeah, let's get started. So this is the topic that we're going to be touching about briefly today, which is solving for impact. We have two very vibrant leaders with us who are going to talk about their perspectives, their journeys, how they as leaders have managed to look at certain problems that usually exist in this non-profit space and understand their perspectives on it. We have about 6 to 7 questions that we've curated based on previous interactions through previous jigyasas, the interactions that the talent acquisition team has with folks interested to join the Nudge on a regular basis, as well as some questions that we've taken from the audience. We've done our best to ensure that we try and answer as many questions as possible. Please feel free to put down your questions or comments in the comment section. We'll try our best to see how we can address them during the session. Great. So let's move on to the very first question, keeping time and everything in mind. So this question is actually for both of you, Geetanjali and Casey. I think the first question that anyone would want to know is that how did you actually make this decision to transition into the social impact space and eventually into the Nudge? So Casey, if you could go first, share and brief about your journey.
Thank you. So before I start that answer, I would like to say that talking to a screen and not being able to see people who joined in today is kind of a little confusing to say the least. So I would like to extend one offer. We're based out of Bangalore. We're based out of Outer Ring Road. At any point of time, if anybody on this call wants to come and meet us, talk to us, explore what the social sector looks like, we are always here to basically have a conversation. And I would personally, and I know Geetanjali would personally love it if you just walk in and say that we met during Jigyasa and I would want to basically talk to you. Now, keeping that aside, this question is a very important question for me because I think moving to the social impact space or the social sector or the development sector, I don't think is a very easy choice to make, specifically for people who've been part of for-profit organizations, have worked in corporate setups, or have their own organizations like Geetanjali is set up two large organizations, and both of them are doing extremely well. And then shifting to the social sector is always a very difficult choice to make. And when you're making that choice, I can speak about myself, but I've also seen other people struggle to make this choice in the past alongside me. It's very important to find your anchors in what you want to do. And it's not very easy to find those anchors because a lot of our life in the past, I was in the marketing analytics space for a very long time. I've seen the the curve of marketing budgets moved from 2% of digital to 98% or 100% digital. So I've seen that entire transition take place in corporate India, and then what happens is that you start speaking only one language in your life. You kind of know the environment that you're working in, and you fundamentally only know what you are doing there. And it's very difficult to detach yourself from the work that you're doing and actually understand what do you want to do effectively, what kind of problems you would want to basically work for if you were to start fresh. And do you have the courage to basically do that? So those are some very difficult questions to answer. And when I made this transition in 2022 to the nudge, a year before that, I had basically called it quits in my corporate career of analytics and research. And there are a couple of reasons because of that. One is that I think I fundamentally was at the cusp of a lot of growth, a lot of change in that industry, and I started to ask myself whether those aspects that I was working in, what level of involvement do I have in the entire process of marketing analytics end to end? And I figured that when I was in the corporate outsourcing space, it was very difficult for you to basically go beyond your charter. So sometimes it's very difficult for you to figure out, uh, do you want to see the entire value chain and do you have visibility to the entire value chain? And I was struggling with that question. And when I was struggling with that question, I realized that I wanted to find a space where I would actually be able to see things end to end, from design to implementation to actually looking at a longitudinal impact of my work. And at that point of time, it was not very possible for me to basically see that in the space that I was working in. So when I called it quits, I didn't obviously know that I wanted to be in the development sector. Interesting story is that actually the first email that I wrote on LinkedIn was to Nudge, to Sudha, and said that I've just left my job and I really want to basically explore what you have available here. And she at that point in time she did not respond immediately, but somebody else from Nudge responded. But I also realized that I was rushing into it. I didn't know about the sector. I didn't know about what I would do there, how I would fit in. And these are important questions when you're shifting from a senior leadership role or a leadership role in the corporate sector to the nonprofit sector, because you really need to basically understand what you want to be leading, right? So my next 8 months or 9 months was spent in understanding the sector a little bit, right? As I put it, that I spent 8 months understanding how India works. And for me, that was very important, because if I had not done that, then I wouldn't have found a passion in climate, or I wouldn't have found a passion in behavioral economics. I wouldn't have found a passion in actually first principle thinking that I was very well versed with, but nobody had basically kind of outlined it for me that way. So when I made that shift, it was a slow and steady shift. It was filled with education, with experiences that I manufactured and manifested for myself. So I took up ILSS, India Leaders for Social Sector. I'm really thankful for the 3 months that I spent with them. I studied public policy in Takshashila to understand how governance is actually understood, and therefore then made that shift to the social sector, knowing that I want to tie in my development sector experience or knowledge with behavioral economics, and that's what I'm doing at the Nudge Prize.
Thank you so much, Casey. I can understand that it was a very well thought out decision that you made, and I'm glad that you're getting to work on what you're really interested in. Really glad to hear that. Geetanjali, you had a very different journey, right? So would love to hear more about how was that shift for you from working in corporate to becoming an agri entrepreneur and then to the Nudge.
Yeah, thanks, Shruti, for that question. So before I start off with the answer, would like to completely echo Casey's thoughts about, hey, if you want to know more about Nudge, or if you want to even bounce off some ideas, please feel free to drop it into our office. We work from office. We're here mostly Monday to Friday. Please feel free to come in for a chat, get some coffee, and talk to us. So mine's been an interesting journey because I've made a shift already. So this is my second shift really, so to speak. So the first 12 years of my career, I spent in corporates in a completely different domain, right? In pharma, clinical research pharma. So it's been a shift from pharma to farming, as I'd like to call. So started off in pharma, did all of that for about 12 years, worked with top pharma companies like Johnson and Johnson, AstraZeneca, GSK, all of that. Managed large teams, 1,000+ teams across locations. Did work from right from ops to transition to sales, pre-sales, all of that stuff. And then found myself thinking, what's the next thing to do, right? And farming and gardening mostly at that point of time has been something close to my heart. Come from a family of farmers down the line, so that has always been an interest. Plus, our summers used to be going back to visiting my hometown in Kerala, actually spending time in the villages, spending time with farmers. So that connect was always there through my career. So when I had to make a shift from, hey, what is it that I want to plan to do next? I had it very clear that yes, I want to try out my hand at entrepreneurship. This was about 10 years back, right? So wanted to try out my hand at entrepreneurship, but when it came to what do I want to do in business, what kind of a business do I want to set up, the whole thing about gardening and farming sort of came to fore, especially because, only when you find a problem, you think of a solution, right? At that point of time, we had bought a house, we were not finding gardeners. It was as simple as that. We were not finding gardeners or professional gardeners who knew about plants, about what should you plant, about native plants, about sustainable gardening, all of that, right? So said, okay, there's this problem, and I'm sure a lot of other people would be facing this problem too. So why not start off a company? It started off as simple as that. Did not have a deeper understanding of the domain. Sort of got an idea of the domain, learned on the job pretty much, grew that company to about 250 people. Post that, 3 years after that, started Pharmazin along with two other co-founders. Pharmazin is a founder for marketplace, of course. In that, I had that unique opportunity of working very closely with farmers. The whole part about knowing where your food comes from is so important, and that's something that we ignore on a day-to-day basis. For us, the food comes from our supermarkets or from all the hyperlocal apps that we order from, right? But where is your food really coming from? Who's the farmer that's toiling hard to get you food to your table? That is somehow lost, right? We read the headlines of so many farmer suicides, farmers protesting for some farm laws, things like that. But how is that all related to the food we're eating? How is that affecting everything? Is something we don't really go deeper into. And that was something that prompted me and my other two co-founders to start my company. The last 7 years of my company has been sort of a journey into interacting with farmers, understanding their challenges on a much deeper level, on the ground surface, understanding that hey, it's not just about why can't they grow multiple crops? There is no money or there is no capital that's there, and the credit scores are obviously you do not. Most farmers don't have a credit score really, so to get loans and stuff. So for them, financial access means going to their local lender and getting loans at a 33% loan, right? We talk about an 8% interest rate and we are like, oh, the interest rate is very high. Whereas they grapple with something like 33% interest rates per year. So anyway, that journey sort of took me to understanding farming a lot more better. Once that is on, once the company sort of is in an autopilot mode, I started thinking of what I want to do next. Many times when people want to shift into the not-for-profit sector, like Casey said, for him, it was about discovering meaning in life. For a lot more people, it is that. For me, it was just about solving big, hairy problems. That's what excites me the most. Solving a problem that is unsolved and solving a complex problem at that, like agriculture, is what keeps me going. it's something that keeps me going at night, like keeps me up at night thinking of, hey, this is there, how do you solve for that? But this problem is there, how do you really connect all of these different players in the ecosystem and actually solve that scale is something that brought me to the nudge about 7 months back now. And the fact that I can still uh, I can still sort of be at a not-for-profit, but run the program like an entrepreneur would, completely be empowered to do my stuff my way, run the program completely independently is something that I've valued and appreciated at the nudge. So yeah, so it's been a great experience for so far, and looking forward to another.
Thank you so much for that, Geetanjali. I can see it's been, a shift for you from, working in the corporate to understanding, following your passion of farming, and then coming to work closely with farmers and looking to impact them, in whatever way possible. So, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. We'll move on to the next question. This is something for you, specifically, Casey, since you've led teams in the for-profit and the non-profit space. It's a very common question that comes to me as a recruiter as well. What are skills that I can bring from the for-profit space to here? So, what are those skills that you've been able to pick up from your previous role, like to what you're doing currently?
Yeah, that's a question that I think a lot of us who kind of take the break or not take the break, but exploring social sector roles or any kind of change, we the first thing that we grapple with is what are our transferable skills. I alluded to it the last time that I was talking about it. I think it's very difficult for you to basically kind of delineate your professional expertise and your domain knowledge from your transferable skills. I'll give you an example. I was leading teams in marketing analytics, as I told you, leading customer experience practices, starting multi-channel and omni-channel practices across multiple organizations, building products that had words like multi-channel attribution, index harmonization from a very analytical perspective. And then what happened was that when I shifted out, I didn't really know how to talk about myself and my skills without actually alluding to those words. And those became my, kind of words to go with. That's my experience. I've done that. But fundamentally, when you actually break it down, I think I have a formula that I would want to basically give all of you, and which may help you kind of understand what this is. Is that first, let us basically all write down what do we do, right? And let us then say how do we do it, and then understand why do we do it. If you basically write those things down, then it becomes easier for you to know that you're curious, you have a design thinking head on you. You have the ability to be insightful in situations where we are not basically kind of covering for all nuances. You have the ability to basically lead teams, but in a very empathetic way so that you can actually grow businesses while keeping the teams motivated. Those are things that basically come to you post that evaluation. So, what do you do, how do you do it, and why do you do it? I would say that everybody who's interested to go to the social sector should do that analysis first, right? For me, it was very simple that I think my core core ability was being curious, right? Coming to a table and actually trying to understand why this is happening. Why is a problem manifesting itself? What are the solutions, and why aren't the solutions working? Right? Not take things for granted and say that okay, this is what it is, so it must be right. Actually, breaking that myth is something that you need to do almost on a daily basis at the social sector. So when you look at for-profit world and the non-profit world, I think we apply the same logics and the same skills, but the outcomes are different, right? How we are measured is quite different. In a for-profit organization, you will be measured in terms of growth of the portfolio that you're working in the number of clients that you've got, in the number of team members that you've basically been able to grow this business in, right? So how fast or what market share have you basically gained out of your competitor pie? In the non-profit sector, it's it's similar. It's on the same lines in terms of growth. Would be fundamentally how deep your product has been able to go. What kind of scale can you achieve with the design thinking that you've done on paper? These are the transferable skills that you basically kind of articulate. But you have to be very careful about thinking that it's not a new ball game, and we shouldn't think like it's absolutely new, but we should have the humility to understand that our brashness of for-profit organizations sometimes does not work in the non-profit sector. The amount of humility that you have to basically show in showing your skills is something that is very important in the non-profit sector, because the commodity that we are basically dealing with is human lives, and the value of those human lives is very important, and all decisions need time, and they need basically a lot of introspection and kind of clarity before you start implementing things, so that you can cover in economics. You see the seen effects and the unseen effects. We do not want unintended outcomes to be a big part of your program design. So in the for-profit organization, you don't care that much about unintended outcomes. In the non-profit world, you have to care about the unintended outcomes. So that's how I would put the skill story here.
I think you covered it all, Casey. First principles thinking, empathy, and humility, I think are some very crucial skills that in non-profits we do definitely look out for. So, yeah, I think I don't think I have anything to add. You've covered it very beautifully. We'll move on to the next question now. So this is for you, Geetaji. You had a lot of work currently also where you go a lot on the field, talk to a lot of farmers, you get a chance to observe the impact of your work on the ground. I think this is again something that keeps coming up in conversations, how are field visits like, what are the challenges that you face? So I think we would want to hear from you on how's it been for you? Are there any challenges that you face? Just, understanding that.
Sure, I'll give a long answer to this.
Okay.
So I want to set some context about the work that we are doing so that you understand better also, so that the folks who are listening also understand better, have a better context to what we're doing, right? So at the Nudge, we're all about, like Shruti said, we're all about poverty alleviation and increasing incomes, right? So for farmers too, our goal has been to see how can we increase incomes for our farmers. To just give you some data, more than 50% of our workforce is actually employed in farming, in agriculture, right? And out of that, about 86% of all farmers are actually small and marginal farmers. Okay, that's a number that's running in hundreds of millions. That's about 140 million farmers who are small and marginal. And what do I mean by small and marginal? It is folks with less than 5 acres of land. Now again, this land has got split every generation. It splits into smaller land holdings, and this is what they have, right? Now, with this farmer, there are, of course, rain-fed farmers again. On top of this, there's another lens on top of this. That is farmers who are completely dependent on rainfall for their farming or agriculture. That is about 60% of all our agriculture, all our farmers are rain-fed farmers. So that's a big number. We're talking about around 88 million farmers who are completely rain-fed farmers. So now when we look at the poorest of the poor farmer here, we look at, which is that sector that we can impact the most, which is the farmer that we can have an impact on the most. It is the farmer at the poorest, at the lowest rung would be the landless farmer, right? The farmer who doesn't have a land to work on and who's currently working on another farmer's land. Now, the next to that would be a small and marginal farmer who's a rain-fed farmer who has no access to water, either a borewell or a canal or water, or has no access to any other forms of water, and is completely dependent on this. So that's the target segment that they're going after. You would be surprised to know, and actually very distressed to know, that these farmers today earn less than 50,000 per year. That's the income of these farmers. So imagine that over a year you get 50,000. We talk about CPCs which are monthly of a lakh and above, right? Here you have a farmer who's earning 50,000 per year. So this is that income, this is that bracket that we are targeting. So here in the program that we are doing at Refarm, we are trying to increase the income of these small farmers by giving them access to capital, because right now they do not have access to capital. They, if probably they want to purchase some machinery or buy better quality seeds. Right now they don't have that ability to do that, simply because there is not enough money, not enough working capital, not enough money, right? And when it comes to, people talk about riskiest professions, people talk about how, entrepreneurship is so risky, or this is so risky. The riskiest profession is that of a farmer. And the farmer takes the most risk, because it's not just dependent on how he performs or how he or she performs or how they grow their crops or their plants, but it's completely dependent on climate and what's in store, right? And with climate change, it's just getting worse every year. So there's climate resilient agriculture also that we're talking about very actively at the Nudge. So we're talking about how can we solve for income for these farmers, how can we maybe give them some capital so that they are able to maybe, give them, support them with inputs, better seeds, also a water intervention, because like I mentioned, these are all rain fed farmers. So can we do a water intervention for them? By water intervention, I mean like a farm pond or something on their farm where they have water stored, that they can use it and then they can use it for their farming, right? The other very important thing is, of course, what crops are they growing? Can they have a diversity of crops? So it's not just important for the farmer to grow a diverse range of crops, but it's also good for the environment and soil if you're actually growing diverse crops. It brings back fertility into your soil. So this fertility, the soil fertility, there are statistics that say that we have fertile soil only left for the next 30 years. Then we run out of fertile soil, right? So for the farmers to bring back fertility into the soil, something like a holistic, climate resilient, multi-cropping, regenerative ag is something that we're looking at. Plus, of course, a market connect, right? A lot of farmers right now, this is the hard reality, that they lack this at the ground level, that they do not have good functioning market connects. So that's very important, again, that the farmer does his or her core competence, which is of growing the produce. Farmer should not have to worry about how to market it. It should be somebody else who will be able to facilitate that for them. That's something that we are working on as well. So we are working on a very high impact, high involved, end to end agri stack kind of a model here at Refarm, right? Just wanted to set that context for you all so that you understand where I'm coming from. We are running a pilot right now. We are doing it in Gulbarga and Karnataka. So coming to challenges, uh, so our field teams are out there in these talukas, in these villages in Gulbarga, right? So when it comes to challenges and addressing these challenges, of course, on the surface of it, there are challenges like working in remote location, right? We have women staff, we have male staff working in these remote locations where there's no access to internet network. Sometimes there's no access to clean toilets. Sometimes roads are bad. You have to walk miles. So all of these are there. These are the hardships, but those are just on the surface. What is, I think, more deeper is understanding cultural nuances, and a much more hard-hitting challenge is actually witnessing firsthand the hardships that these communities face. So when we go on the field and we've gone on with an objective of, hey, I need to work with these farmers, I need to increase incomes, these are my things. And when you actually step into these villages, you realize that there are a bunch of problems that they're grappling with. It's not just the agriculture problem, it's not just crop yields. There's problems like sanitation, there are problems like not having roads, there are problems like basic amenities like electricity, water. Uh, Women and men have to walk miles, travel miles to just get water. So it is possible to get overwhelmed when, especially our staff and us, when we go on site, to get overwhelmed in these challenges. And it's possible to feel that where do you really start from? Do you start from the agri side, or do you start from, hey, can I provide a clean toilet for the village to have in, because then we know in many villages do not have clean toilets in their houses. They have to go early in the mornings or late in the nights for accessing, to the villages, to the farms. So these are some of the things that one can get overwhelmed with. So, and how we deal with it is really sorting out, putting these plan of actions of, no, these are the things that we will deal with today. These are the steps. These are the improvements that we can do. Breaking tasks down into manageable chunks, because it can get very overwhelming in fields. This is the biggest challenge that we face. And while we can sit in an office and make grand plans, usually and in most cases, might all go for a toss when you actually see it on the ground, right? Because it's very different. There are cultural nuances to it which you never did understand. There are caste issues which you never understood. So things change on the ground, and it's important to have your plan or project dynamic to incorporate these changes as well.
Thank you so much, Gitanjali, for that answer. I think you also gave a very good overview of the reform program and the challenges, and to be able to prioritize and focus on what's more important and not get overwhelmed by this. So I think that's a very important point to definitely consider. We move on to the next question, which is for Casey. So the next question is around understanding what are some of the differences that you've noticed in the kind of problems that you see while working in the for-profit and in the non-profit spaces.
I think first I think Gitanjali, uh, that was a good summary of the complexities of the problem that you're solving at Refarm. Um, I think it rises. We've heard this phrase "wicked problem" multiple times. We've heard complex problems. Social sector deals with complex problems. But before we go there, let me basically kind of take a step back and say that all the people who are listening today, all of you, or all individuals who really want to explore the social sector, don't want to explore the social sector from a singular lens. Some of them wants to work on some of them want to work on rights. Some of them want to work on actual economic problems. Some of them want to basically work on aspects of economic problem, either by by basically making sure that connecting markets or providing assets of implementing your work, be it water for agriculture or inputs, good inputs for agriculture, or basically kind of finding easier ways to do your harvesting. All of those are different variations of the social sector work that we are working in, right? And within the social sector, you are actually working with multiple stakeholders who have a very deeply vested role in the problem. When you work with agriculture, so at Rise, we work with multiple problem statements. We don't work with one problem statement. Our whole approach is that can you use challenges and grand challenges as a way for bringing disruptive solutions to underserved segments and problems in India, and help guide the market to operate in the most beautiful way for that particular segment. Right? In doing that, when we pick up problem statements, be it for smallholder farmers' income or smallholder farmers' access to water, we're doing an ag water challenge at this point of time, or we worked in clean drinking water as a solution for India, or now kind of also basically thinking of working in reusing wastewater as an alternative source of water. These are all, problems that you and me face, but they're not singular in terms of ownership. They're very complex in ownership. Government has a role, markets have a role, civil society organizations either working with the farmer or working at the corporate level or working at the government level, at the center level, all have roles in how policy is written, how technology is advanced, how technology is implemented, how markets for that technology are basically developed. So there are multiple stakeholders here. When we were working with problems that we had in for-profit organizations, many a time, I wouldn't say all of them, it was easier to break them into bite size and focus your career or focus your work on bite-sized problems. Transaction sometimes happens between two or three entities. That's it, the buyer and the seller. of services or products. And it's simple that way. You will still have to work with an ecosystem, but the ecosystem has incentives, very clearly outlined incentives, right? There's a transaction cost, there is a margin to be earned. Everybody who gets their margin does their work, right? But in the non-profit world or the social sector problems, the incentives are all wonky. They're not clearly defined. The incentives were maybe defined in 1950s and haven't been changed yet. So the incentives have actually created more problems than solutions for you. So when you actually come to the non-profit sector and when you pick up complex problems and big problems for gender, for scaling up micro SME, you will not have the opportunity to see the incentives very clearly. So your first objective or work here is to basically see how does that farmer have access to that machine that he needs to harvest better or improve their productivity. Where will they get water from? Is it through the ground? Is it through a shallow aquifer? Is it through basically is it through rain, effectively like for rain-fed farmers? And all of that are risk-heavy incentives. So effectively, you don't know the incentive turnout is that you will be able to basically only access this if 5 other conditions are true, and that's a very complex place. That's why Gitanjali said that a farmer is the most it's the riskiest profession in whole of India because you don't have choices. You're stuck in that whatever you are doing, and so many dependent variables are there. So our problems in social sector are quite complex because of these interconnectedness between stakeholders. And for us, it is very important to basically kind of work with stakeholders and also design what you can do and what you can't do, what is in your control and what is outside your control. That takes time, that takes a lot of design work. And like all design work in the for-profits and non-profit sector, only a portion of it actually translates. A lot of it is left on the whiteboard and is very difficult to translate. So that is what I would say if you were thinking about differences.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Casey. Next question, Gitanjali, I think I'll ask this to you since you've been here for 7 months and you had to start the program, build the team. What has really helped you in this process of building this team, getting people together, who are all joining you in this cause?
Great question. Thanks, Shruti. So when we started, exactly, we built a team right now, we build these things. So what we look for or what I look for when I'm building a team for reform or for anything in the not-for-profit space, right, is basically their motivation towards joining a not-for-profit. So I think that is very essential for me, and that's something that I look for. Their passion, what is it that they are looking for? What is the motivation? Can that be aligned with the work that we're doing here? That's of course key. That's the first thing I look for. 2 is, of course, their willingness to get their hands dirty and willingness to actually jump in and solve problems and not wait for someone else. Like willingness to take ownership, accountability, jump in, get your hands dirty, solve it firsthand. Because, like Casey said, this is working with multiple stakeholders also. So it requires you to wear multiple hats at multiple times because you're working with different stakeholders, you're working with funders at many instances, and you're working with people on the ground, farmers, right? So you have to find a balance between all of this and wear multiple hats. So I would say motivation, their willingness, plus what is it they're looking for, willingness to get their hands dirty, all of this. And the most important thing is empathy and empathy for this target audience or whoever that we are trying to solve these problems for, right? And empathy and not sympathy here. I'd just like to say it's not to sympathize and say that, oh, this farmer is suffering, but actually empathizing and putting yourself in their shoes and actually understanding the problems that they're going through and the multifacetedness of all of it is what I think is important. Of course, their commitment towards the cause, how long they're going to be in for, all of these are key things that you look for. Yeah, I just maybe. Yeah,
but I just wanted to add something. So
yeah,
please.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, I'll complete in there. So the last thing is that, so the good part about all of this is folks who want to get into the not-for-profit already to a large extent come with all of this. They know that, they have done their research, they've done their homework sort of. They know what they're signing up for in most cases. And they have a deep empathy that is already there. And they have, they're willing to sort of explore that and willing to actually put in that effort and do that with passion. Over to you.
No, I just wanted to add the thing is that I think all people who are aspiring to the social sector, most of them who are on this live session today, might have some experience in networked organizations, large organizations. And I think what has helped me build teams in this space and specifically at the Nudge is that, fundamentally the organization is a high performing networked organization. So what does that mean? That means that we work on really innovative social, design models. We are not basically looking at only implementation, but also thinking, intuitively about what that program should be, and then constructing every piece of it and then taking it to the ground. So there's an action part to it, there's a design part to it, and to kind of aid that structure, there's a dedicated people and culture practice. There is basically a dedicated marketing practice. There's a fundraising practice. There's a finance department that basically takes care of a lot of ambiguity in the space by making sure that we are absolutely credible and clear on how we work with funding and government and other partners. So it eases into you focusing on building teams, and it eases this whole exterior and the structure that's been created in the organization focuses on pushing innovation and focuses on pushing these boundaries a little forward. So it's something that we are used to in corporate in the corporate world or in high performance teams and high performance organizations. And I think the Nudge has been able to replicate some of that here in the for-profit and the non-profit sector as well, and which helps you to basically kind of focus on, okay, what kind of DNA would you need to build your team? Where would you basically find those DNAs? And then effectively go out and hire the best at with keeping alive the vision of what you basically want to accomplish. So I would just wanted to add that theme of the large networked organization to create a high performing organization at the end.
No, makes complete sense. Thanks, Casey, for that addition. And also want to add this small thing here. For folks who are right now in jobs, maybe senior leadership roles, who are looking at actually exploring entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship in particularly in social entrepreneurship, a stint at a not-for-profit and that to an organized not-for-profit and structured one like at the Nudge might be actually a good option because you can still sort of be a social entrepreneur. You're empowered to lead a program, to get things off the ground, to lead that. Plus, you have the comfort of a bigger organization in terms of having a people and culture group or finance or
Right.
all of those things are there. So I think that as well. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Natalie, and thank you, Casey, for sharing that.
Butting in.
Yeah, thank you. Running a little short of time, so I'll quickly skip to the next two questions that we have. Casey, if you can, quickly answer this. I think as a leader, one thing you're struggling with always is trying to understand how you're solving for these problems, but also leading the team that is dependent on your leadership to get there. So how is it that you have managed or tried to strike a balance between these?
I think we've spoken about this in bits and pieces
Yeah.
across. One of my team members wrote to me last evening and said that I think one of the features of what we've been able to build over the last 1.5 years has been is a factor of the fact that we've been able to keep our eye on the ball, and that's about it. You will go into complex problems. You will have problems leading teams, building teams in the space. But if you have your eye on the ball, if you know that you're doing it steadily, you're building momentum every day, you will get there despite the problems that you have. But there are constraints, right? We're not able to be. We are at best. I think 1/10 of the resources that corporate India today basically takes to solve similar problems. And actually working at that 1/10 resource constraint is not very easy. That enables teams to basically look at that. If their eyes are on the ball, what they do is they basically maximize those resources, right? They maximize their effort to basically kind of do stakeholder management. They maximize their effort to do spotlighting on actual problems. In the prices case, we do a lot of work in spotlighting technologies that can change India. And when you have to do that, you have to find the easiest way to tell that story, right? The best way to tell that story. And if you look at everybody who's basically part of the prize team, they've found multiple ways to get their voice out at a fraction of the cost that is needed, or a fraction of the effort that is needed, right? How do you actually tell those compelling stories and do it in a good way? People have done research in water and in gender for many years. We've been able to basically create distill reports or distillation reports of existing media and public consultation to come out with economic problems that are facing that particular complex problem, so that we can actually design a prize around it. So to do that research, we've taken about 3 months, and we've done our best to maximize our time, maximize our intellect, maximize our connection, to do research at a very vast on a very vast topic, but come out with actionable insights on what we should do next. So the team itself then becomes a part and parcel of maximizing your constraints or minimizing your constraints, however you look at it. So I feel that that's the balance that you have to do. You have to make sure that your eyes are on the game, and the kind of people and the kind of teams that you're building are empathetic to the one that Gitanjali said, but also focused on what the problem they're solving for and getting those leverage points to you every day.
I'll butt in again,
Yeah.
because he butted
Tit for
in
tat.
mine. So it's like climbing a mountain, right? So because the problem is so huge and so complex, so it's like climbing a mountain, but you have to take one step at a time. And there will be boulders on your way, and then you change your trail and you go somewhere else. And then, but you finally end up at the summit. So yeah,
It's that path, finding the path.
finding the path.
Got it. I think it's just about taking the team together with you when
Yes.
you make that journey. So I think completely agree 100%. Gitanjali, the last question that we have is for you. It's a question that keeps coming up a lot, and it's a sensitive but an important question. Everyone knows that reduced compensation is a reality in the non-profit space, and that's something that people transitioning have to consider. But what have been the considerations for you that have helped you make that decision?
So I think this is at most a personal decision. I think different people are at different stages in their career. For some who have worked in the space for a long time, in corporate for a long time, it's probably easier to make the transition if they've saved up, or probably easier to make that transition at that stage. For people who are starting off too, I see a lot of folks who come in who are starting off and start off with a not-for-profit. It's because they're very clear about what their priorities are. And they're very clear that this is what I want to do. They have done some amount of volunteering at college. They've, say, for example, done a Teach for India program, something like that, been part of something like that. And then they've seen that this is what brings them meaning, this is what brings them joy, and then they want to explore that further, right? So, yes, there's probably reduced compensation with respect to if you compare it with market salaries that you get for a for-profit. But I think it's also changing. Over time, it's changing. I think right now the salaries are quite, I would say, competitive also to some extent, with a lot of structured not-for-profits coming into the frame.
Substantially improved, I think, over the last 6 or 7 years. Still not there, but I think fundamentally it's much better than what it used to be at 10 years back. And that's the hope, that I think more people invest in their time and effort and capital to basically solve these problems rather than lucrative problems. Solving for these will become a little more lucrative for the people who are working here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nancy and Casey. We've come to the end of the questions that we had prepared for the session. There was a form that we had circulated a few days ago asking our participants to share any questions that they had. Keeping time in mind, I think we have time for one question, one or two questions that we can answer. I think one question that comes up is how tech savvy are development sector organizations? How is the usage of tech? How does that help? Any one of you, Casey, actually, whoever wants to answer that.
I think we both will jump in here. I think it's as, I mean, I don't know, my experience has been that it's as tech savvy as, say, the firm that I was working in earlier. In terms of we use the same tech platforms. We work on, I mean, we work on laptops. We use Trello. We use Slack. We use communication tools like that. We use multiple. I think, yeah. I don't see a big difference.
So I think there are a couple of things. Are we tech savvy? Are we basically still pushing paper from one desk to the other? No. So we are much more. I would say we are much more in tune with what we need rather than the shiny little toy. So effectively, if our work needs technology to be a part of it, then it is part of it the next day, and we don't have basically any issues in using it to work. All our programs are aiming to be tech first. We feel that tech first is a pathway to scale, and for our programs to scale, we have to basically kind of be in tune with how the world is changing digitally, and how do we use digital cues to basically change the ecosystem that we are working for. So yeah, it's part and parcel. I would also say that go as far as in saying is that I think I would look at my dashboards at the nudge more closely than my corporate lives before. There were too many dashboards and there were too much information data coming through, but not enough utilization. At the nudge, the data that we get access to, the amount of information that we get access to, the way that we actually approach surveys, questions across the organization, a lot of us are more tuned to look at data and take decisions on data. And that's what we would say. As in, also we use mobile phones, so that's enough tech savviness also. Yes.
Thanks, Gitanjali. Thanks, Vijay. I think we have time for one more question before we wrap up. This is a little long, but I think this is something that again, is something that's part and parcel of working in a non-profit. How do you look to prioritize community engagement and participation in your development initiatives, and how does this contribute to sustainable impact? Gitanjali, I think I'll throw it to you since you work closely with.
I'll let Casey answer first, and then I'll add.
So I think community engagement can be interpreted multiple ways. One of those ways is basically kind of building ecosystems. The other way is, are we open for volunteering? It could be those two areas. I have a very clear view that I think we work on all of those aspects when we build ecosystems for our products. So we prioritize community engagement a lot, and participation, holistic participation from the ecosystem is a cornerstone of our programs. So it does not go away without that. For us, impact is not without them, it's with them.
So yeah, so like Casey said, so the ecosystem is the operating word, I think. So we work with a lot of other NGOs as well. We work with other not-for-profits, NGOs, governments, private companies, private sector companies who are like Casey's Prize actually works with a lot of private companies. So we work with the ecosystem because we feel these are very large problems that can't be solved by a company or two companies. It requires the ecosystem to come together to sort of solve these. So yeah.
Got it. Keeping time in mind and considering we're close to 7, we'll wrap up the session. There were a few more questions that did come in. Don't worry, we'll do our best to reach out to you and give you answers to those questions. You can also drop in any other questions you have in our comments on LinkedIn, and we'll answer them some way or the other. I'm sure the marketing team will definitely take a look at that and see how they can creatively look to answer your questions. But coming to the end, thank you so much, Gitanjali and Casey, for agreeing to do this session. For the nudge, answering these questions very patiently, taking the time to talk about your programs, your journey. I'm sure everyone really got an insight into how your journeys have been. How is it, a day? I think we got to walk a little bit in your shoes about how your day is like, and just understand things. Hope all of you also really, got a lot of information about how the nudge works, how our leaders look to solve certain wicked problems, as we love to call it at the nudge. And yeah, definitely, please feel free to reach out in case anything comes. Like Casey and Gitanjali said, our office is in Marathali on the Outer Ring Road. Feel free to walk in case you want to have a chat with both of them or any of us. We'll be happy to have you answer your questions and show you around our office as well. Also, the Nudge is currently hiring for a variety of leadership roles as well. One such role is the head people in culture, where we're looking out for somebody who has the opportunity to build the culture at Nudge by attracting and nurturing talent, which I think what Gitanjali and Casey definitely do need to keep their programs running and all other programs as well. So do check out the link we put up in our comments soon. If this role is if these roles are something that attract you, something that interests you, please do apply, and our team will reach out to you for a conversation. Also check out our careers page for other opportunities that we have a wide variety of roles, diverse roles open. So please do check it out. Thank you so much for your time on a Thursday. Once again, thanks Gitanjali and Casey, and see you all at the next Jigyasa.
Thank you, Shruti.
Thank you, Shruti. Thanks everyone
Thank
for
you for
staying
joining.
in. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.